I'm going to talk to you about a subject that is very important to me, and I hope it's also very important to you. And that's creating sustainability in the world that we live in. And if you know me well, you will not be surprised by my belief that data is a key to creating a sustainable world. If we look at the best practices, Peter Drucker, who is an amazing management guru who passed away some years ago from Austria, he talks about what gets measured gets managed, and I believe that. We need to start by collecting the data, and then we need to figure out what is the data telling us about the opportunities for creating a sustainable world. And I will argue that we largely know how to do this already. In many organizations, we've already implemented activity-based costing for dollars or euros. We understand that if we're in a grocery store, how much it costs us to buy the products that we sell. We know how much it costs us to store them on the store shelves. We know how much it costs us to stock the store shelves. We understand the losses related to breakage. We understand all of those things using activity-based costing models. And it's the same thing. If I run an airline, I understand by flight, by passenger, by piece of luggage, what is the CO2 cost of those things as an opportunity. We start with what are the dollars cost. We can translate that into CO2 cost. So I'm going to challenge us to use existing analytic models that we already have and think about how, instead of focusing on dollars, we focus on sustainability. We focus on calculating not just the costs in monetary terms, but also the cost to the environment. We can create models for activity-based costing for CO2, just like we created for monetary instruments. And in order to create a framework for profitable sustainability, we need to look at things in a multidimensional way, right? We need to understand the sustainability of the product that we're designing and creating. We need to understand the sustainability of the production processes for doing the manufacturing. We need to understand the sustainability of getting the raw materials into our factories and the supply chain for getting up from our factories to the store shelves or to the consumer. We need to understand the sustainability of the consumption, and we can measure all of these things. Just like we historically measure euros or dollars, we can measure sustainability. And it's up to us to do that. Now, I'm not saying that it's an easy thing to do, and I'm saying that we should take this in a phased way. Let's first look at, direct costs from an environmental point of view. So if we think of the evolution, right, let's say that we're manufacturing a product. We understand what are the direct emissions from our factory for manufacturing the product. And we can do this. We already understand the cost of manufacturing a good in terms of dollars or euros. We can understand the cost in terms of CO2. In scope 2, we go one step further and say, well, it's not only the cost, our direct cost of the manufacturing of the product, it's the indirect cost of the energy that we consume. And if we consume clean energy, that has a different cost than if we're consuming dirty energy. In scope 3, we go one step further, right? We look at the third-party logistics in the supply chain to get the raw materials into our factories, and we look at what it takes to get the product into the hands of the customer. We need to walk before we run. Let's start with scope 1. Let's understand the direct cost to the environment of creating our product. Let's then understand the indirect cost. And then in 3, we look all up and down the supply chain. Take an incremental approach and apply our best practices that we've used for many years for optimizing cost in monetary terms in our operations for creating and delivering our products. We can do this for environmental purposes as well. So I'm going to ask you a question, and just to answer to yourself. You don't have to answer out loud, but I want you to think to yourself, how does your company use machine learning? And I suspect that in most cases, the primary use of machine learning is how to optimize processes, pricing, all around dollars or euros or crowns or whatever your favorite currency is. It's about the money. It's about the economics of the business that you're in. And I'm going to challenge us here as, as industry and data and analytics. We need to think about machine learning not only for creating monetary value, but also ecological value. So if we optimize for the objective function of maximizing profitability, and that's the only thing that we care about, we're going to get high profitability because machine learning is very good at finding optimal solutions. But remember, we provided the objective. How about if we provide an objective of not just economic viability, but also ecological viability, sustainability? We can create objective functions to minimize the impact of what we do with our business to the environment. And again, that starts with what we were just discussing, of being able to collect the data, measure, create models for calculating the environmental cost of everything that we do, and then using machine learning to improve our performance. Just like we use machine learning to improve our profitability, we can use machine learning to improve our ecological sustainability. Now, the tricky thing here is it's not just one or the other. I'm not saying don't do any machine learning for optimizing the monetary part. I'm saying we need to have a more complex world in which we think about the trade-offs, where I'm willing to give up potentially that last inch of profitability in order to create a more sustainable world. And so, I like this quote from Lao Tzu, a Taoist master: if you don't change the direction, you may end up where you're headed. So if we use machine learning and we constantly optimize profitability and we don't care about anything else, then we're going to end up in a bad place. And that bad place is a world of ecological disruption. And it's already started, but that does not mean that we should give up. We need to intervene, and we need to find what is the intersection of economic viability and ecological sustainability. There is an intersection point, right? And if we focus only on economic viability without paying attention to environmental sustainability, we're going to end up somewhere in this solution set where we're maybe not paying enough attention to the environmental sustainability. If we only focus on environmental sustainability and we create an unprofitable business and our business goes bankrupt, then we've lost the opportunity to have a positive impact on the world. So it's very important that we find the intersection point between the economic viability and the environmental sustainability. This is the profitable sustainability, where you see in the Venn diagram we have an overlap. But notice this overlap is small. And I would argue that if we use machine learning and we think about how to, redesign and recreate our businesses, we can create a much higher intersection point where profitable sustainability is what we're doing by default. This should be the default. This should be how we run our businesses, creating both economic viability. Yes, we need to be profitable. Even if you're a nonprofit, you can't go bankrupt, because then you don't have the ability to provide good into this world we live in. And creating environmental sustainability is goodness. So let's figure out how to have the economic viability and environmental sustainability simultaneously. Now, the challenge here is making incremental changes to what we're already doing. It moves very, very slowly. So I'm going to suggest that we have this idea of a chief destruction officer. This means that sometimes you need to burn down the house in order to make room for something better to be in its place. This is a picture of Burning Man, and the last day of Burning Man, we burn down the man, and this is very symbolic. You burn down the man because next year we're going to start fresh, and we're going to reinvent every year, and we have to constantly reinvent. Burning Man is one of the most innovative places that you can imagine on the face of the earth, right? And we get together, you exchange ideas. There are no boundaries, there are no rules about how you innovate, and sometimes you need to change the rules in order to create amazing innovation. And I'm going to ask you to do this in the context of how you think about sustainable innovation. So this idea of zero-based transformation is, I would argue, a best practice. Zero-based transformation says, well, instead of looking at where we are now and trying to make incremental changes to where we want to be, imagine where you want to be and think about how you're going to get there from a blank piece of paper. Do not be trapped by the baggage of how we used to do things in the past, because it's clear that how we've been doing things in the past is unsustainable. So how do we create sustainability in what we're doing, but sustainability which is economically viable? So again, multiple objective functions where we have sustainability, and I'm mentioning ecological sustainability, but of course, societal sustainability is another dimension to that. We don't have time to get into the different dimensions of sustainability, but you need the economic viability so that we can continue to do good in society, because if we go out of business, that's no good. But if we're in business to make profit and we're not paying attention to sustainability and we're not measuring the cost, also. So this zero-based transformation is, think about what is the business that we want to run, and think about all those different dimensions of a business framework, how we produce our product, how we design our product, how we deliver our product in the supply chain, and how our product gets consumed. Think about all those things, and what is the world we want to live in, and what are the best practices that we can take from a blank piece of paper, and then work backwards. So innovation, yes, you can do forward chaining. Where are we now? And make incremental changes to innovate. But sometimes it's very safe innovation, but it's very slow. And sometimes it lacks the breakthroughs. You need to look at where we want to be and do backwards chaining. And the reality, it's a little bit of both. If you do forward chaining and backwards chaining, you can make them meet in the middle. That's very powerful. But I want to challenge you with zero-based transformation, where you think of that blank page and don't get held down by how things are being done today, because we know those things need to change. Let's be the big change agents that we can be in this world. Now, as someone in data and analytics, we can point to, this business in retailing and manufacturing and transportation logistics, and we can help make them more sustainable, more green, and so on. It's easy to point your finger at other people, right? I want to take a moment and point our fingers at ourselves and look at, are we in data and analytics, are we being best practices of sustainability, right? Are we using clean energy sources to power up, all these clouds that we're using to run our analytics? How much power is being consumed when the system is idle, right? So consumption of resources, and those standby resources, they take resources, right? What happens to those idle resources? We need to consider, even from a data and analytics point of view, what our impact is on the environment. And I would say that one of the most egregious examples where we're being completely unsustainable in our use of data and analytics is Bitcoin, right? If Bitcoin was a country, it would be in the top 30 energy users worldwide. This is from a study from University of Cambridge earlier this year. This is embarrassing, and this is us in data analytics, right? Emitting a CO2 footprint, which I would argue is unacceptable, right? We're using more energy than the whole country of Argentina for this purpose. Could we be doing something better with our energy and solving problems in a different way? So I want to challenge us to make sure that we are not blindly throwing infrastructure at a software problem, at an intellectual problem. I want you to look at this amazing child on the screen and think to yourself, could I look this person, Greta, in the eye and say, am I doing the right thing from a data and analytics point of view? And maybe it's not Greta you look in the eye. Can you look at your own child, your own niece, your own nephew in the eye and say, I'm doing everything I can as a data and analytics person to create a sustainable world that's going to be a good world for you to live in. Not only helping other industries, but also our own industry. We need to look introspectively to make sure that we are making efficient use of resources and not just blindly throwing more resources at a problem which we could be solving more efficiently through software. Use efficient software and you will be doing more efficient analytics with your data, and that is also has a positive impact of sustainability in our world. So my call to action to you is, first, start with the data, collect the data, measure outcomes, and focus not only on the outcomes of profitability, but also on the outcomes of sustainability. Create sustainability objectives for your machine learning. And yes, it's harder because now you have multivariate optimization going on, and we need to optimize for economic viability at the same time as ecological sustainability. It's a harder problem, but that makes it a more interesting and a more important problem. And I want to challenge you to pursue radical change over incremental change. Incremental change is moving too slowly. We need to rethink the way that we're approaching many of our businesses to recreate a more sustainable business model. I hope these ideas will help you move forward to create a better world. Something that is very important to you and very important to me is sustainability in an economically viable way. Thank you very much for your time.